Waiting for an answer is always a process of worry, of anxiety, because we never know. It's a very natural way God has of speaking to us first, and this is the most important of them. Have I never heard God speaking to me? Just as the sacred scripture says that God spoke to Moses when you, because of your difficulties, your impediments, were unable to hear what the Lord needed to tell you. He will speak to you too. Maybe you are identifying with what I'm saying. Maybe today you are also thinking, based on what I started telling myself, what do you need? Tonight, we have nothing else to announce but this. The answer God has for you? Good evening. It is with great joy that we are starting another video here on the channel. Inspiration? I leave Dion to us. Comment, share with your friends. Thank you for the opportunity to enter your home. In your life, it is always an immense satisfaction for me to be able to have this access to the hearts of so many people, and precisely to be able to do what God asks, what He does, to reach the lives of others, to reach the hearts of others, and to offer courage, right, which sometimes is all we need. Sometimes courage is dormant within us, and when the other arrives, I always like to say this because the other has an effective authority over us, so the other's word weighs on us. So when he asks us, have courage, he, in some way, reminds us that courage is already within us. Why don't we invent courage to live? St. Augustine said this, that God only asks of us what He already is, has already given us. Is it giving back? So if God asks me for courage, it is because it is already within me. But God speaks through the people around me. That is why it's so important to be aware of the people we allow access to us. Yes, because just as someone can, recruiting courage can remind me that I have the courage within me to overcome my challenges. I can also surround myself with people who discourage me, which can make me forget that I have courage. We are always influenceable. We are always under the influence of others. No matter how emotionally mature we are, the other person's word will always have an impact within us. So, taking care of this emotional environment is very important because God will pass through people. It's interesting, right? Sometimes we see in the sacred scriptures of passages where the prophets had their moments with the Lord and listened. What did the Lord want them to do? We have Moses, who often withdraws to listen to the Lord. And sometimes it gets in our heads that God always speaks to our hearts in a supernatural way. And that's why it sometimes even generates disbelief in some. I've never heard God speaking to me, just like the sacred scriptures say that God spoke to Moses. So the person becomes discouraged, right? Because they think it doesn't happen to them. But let's not forget that it's a very natural way that God has of speaking to us first. And this is the most important of them, which is when we become silent and learn to listen to our inner self. The most intimate can observe. We sometimes make a lot of mistakes. It's because we become unaccustomed to listening to our inner self. We are very distracted. We have difficulty with silence. We have difficulty with stillness. So we are listening to ourselves less and less. But if you stop to listen, I'm sure you will get in touch with what you need to live. And this is the main channel through which God speaks to us. Yes, I am a being capable of hearing you from within. I am the place where God dwells. Waiting for an answer from God is not much different from when we wait for an answer from another. For example, it's natural that when we are waiting for an answer, our heart experiences that strange process of contradiction, a strange process, because in contradiction, we forget who we are, we forget what we can do, and we end up in the hands of the other. Waiting for an answer from another is often putting ourselves in the hands of the other and depending on the other. It's like you, who did 11 interviews for a job that you really need. You are in the hands of the person who works there in the company's personnel department, and you end up depending on what they think about you. And it is at this moment that contradiction enters our hearts. As much as we are sure what we know that, from what we can do, the possibility always crosses our minds that the other person wasn't able to see the value we have. Maybe during the interview you were nervous, and that put a film between you and your truth. Unfortunately, the other person who is there beside you, evaluating who you are, notice your nervousness much more than your ability. In short, waiting for an answer. Unfortunately, the other person standing there beside you Evaluating who you are, you may have noticed your nervousness much more than your ability. Anyway, waiting for an answer is always a process of worry, of anxiety, because we never know what the other person truly found within us. And it's not uncommon for this process to take place within us, because sometimes we don't even know what answer we're waiting for. Life is a process of answers all the time, but often we don't know what we're waiting for, so some anxieties take over us. It's as if we don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to be, because we still don't even know very well what the question we asked is. So, if we don't know what the question is, it's difficult to wait for an answer. And sometimes in life, my friends, we meet people who seem to be waiting for an answer forever because of the process of anxiety I saw, as if they were also constantly depending on the world's approval, as if we're constantly depending on the approval of society, of the people we live with. But that's where the experience of God's love comes in. And I insist again, every time we have a religious experience, we are having an experience that breaks the process of contradiction, that reorganizes, that brings a new harmony to the heart. Religion is you reconnecting the ends that were disconnected. When we are waiting for an answer, in some way, we have one end disconnected, because we need the other to come and tie this part of the rope that has come loose. And the love of God in our lives is precisely to place within us the necessary reform, the necessary glue to make the end come back together. The other one was disconnected. That's why when we have God in our hearts, this whole process of waiting in life becomes more harmonious, less distressing. Is that what having Jesus in our hearts is? It's about us beginning to face the process of questions and answers that this life constantly gives us, and facing the process of waiting in a more balanced way. Those who have God in their hearts know how to wait for the right time. It's magic, not a constant learning process. I think it's a process that puts us in the struggle to understand what we don't always understand easily with Flavio. When God enters our hearts, he brings calm. I, personally, have been asking God a lot for the gift of calm. With calm, we analyze the question better. With calm, we wait better for the answers. When we look slowly at our lives, when we look without rushing, we have the possibility of seeing the details that haste doesn't catch us. When we look calmly and without rushing, we have the opportunity to better perceive reality. And then there's that anguish that is natural to this process, waiting for water to go down, or do they stay? Softened, my people? And when we wait for an answer from someone who doesn't know us, our society is doubled. But when we know that the one who will give us the answers loves us, it becomes different. When we understand life as a process of God's response in our story, we begin to become calmer, and therefore, God's love has the power to transform us, putting calm within us, serenity, harmony. Because if I wait for someone who loves me, I am sure that the answer that the one who loves me will give me will always be favorable for my life. Trust in God's love. Let this not be a theory in your life. No, trusting in God's love gives you back the serenity you need to live. Know that God is taking care of the best answer, and will respond in a way that will be favorable to you. God is not your enemy. God is not an opponent of your happiness. God is not someone who is looking at your defects to punish you. No, that's not it. God is not very interested in what you did wrong, because what you did wrong can only have value if you use it to your advantage. It's not to punish. It's not to place guilt on us. It's not to awaken within us the desire for victory. I use what was unfavorable to me for my growth. That's the answer that God gives us. God never has an answer of condemnation, because condemnation is only possible for those who have already finished, for those who have already died, for those who no longer want anything, for those who are no longer expecting anything. But for us who are alive, even if it allows carriers countless defects, salvation is the only reality to be announced. So what? Tonight, we have nothing else to announce but this: the answer that God has for you, whatever it may be, and you can be sure it is favorable to you. Is it in your favor? Is it for your growth? Is it for your happiness? Allow it. May God offer this to you. He may not give you the answer today, but he is in your hand. What can I tell you one thing? Between receiving God's answer and receiving his hand, I prefer to receive his hand. Why do I follow him without knowing why it happened? But I follow in peace, because it is like this with me all the time. all the time. In my experience of being who I am, I need to deal with the dark realities of my temperament, the temperament of gold, in my life, in the lives of others. Not stopping. I don't have an answer for everything. Now I discover in my daily life what could be unveiled to help me be better, to help me overcome, to be able to overcome the context of convention of what I already thought of myself. Pizzeria seeking my best version, having this God increasingly free from these horrible burdens that we place on him. It was God's will, that tragedy. God wanted it this way. I think we don't need to keep doing this for us to be able to believe. You know what, Maduro? On our part, it's more honest. We take responsibility, and we face the process. The healing that comes little by little. The soul is wounded. Are you feeling? What is uncomfortable? Pay attention to what bothers you. Pay attention to what is hurt. Create a ritual of healing. Funny, people, the Spirit itself tells us, what should we do? The process of listening to the voice of the Spirit within us, giving us even the right to revolt. It's human. God will not deprive us of what is human. Now my spiritual life is making me aware of this, and you will climb the steps of this overcoming. This is living, approval, living the struggle, certain that a victory awaits us. No one is left helpless after having fought the good fight, because we will experience recognition in the soul. It's not from outside. It's the satisfaction we have for having done what we should have done, for having acted as we should have acted. That's what will. At the end of it all, that's what will count. The crown of victory, the crown of life, the satisfaction that we experience internally of being on the right path. That's what he wants. May you have the courage to change the structure of your life. Change what you need to change. Discipline yourself in what you need to discipline yourself, so that you have right to enjoy a quality life here. Eternity is a consequence. Is that what the Lord taught the Samaritan woman? Woman, there will come a time when you won't need to go to that mountain, nor this one. But what will you find? The Lord, that you will live a profound experience with him, in spirit and in truth. The encounter with Jesus, Maritano song, is definitive for us to rethink our relationship with the Lord. In me, it is in you that God lives. So if I want to hear him, it's enough to go back. My look inside. What is he? Then you could say hi. So why do I go to church if he is inside me? Yes, it's a ritual. It's a walk on the outside, only to help us later to enter inside, to walk on the inside. Inside? So I go to church because there I have an ambience that favors me to reach my inner self. And there, even our question is valid, isn't it? Are our masses? Are our temples? Is the conduct adopted there conducive to leading people to an encounter with the Lord? Sometimes our churches are also places of so much distraction, so much noise. Sometimes our celebrations are so unprayerful, right? Sometimes there is no room for silence, for stillness. We have difficulty with that. Yes, but I go to church or I go into a quieter place, don't I? I personally really like empty churches. It's the opportunity one have to do what I'm telling you. I enter a holy place. That makes me return to the holy place that I am. That sometimes, when we forget that the Lord is within us, we look for him from the outside. And whoever looks from the outside will not find him, because the Lord is within us. That which is outside can help us or can hinder this encounter. So if I enter my room with the desire to be alone with the Lord, will I be able to? Because my desire makes the difference. There's no point in me entering the church if I don't have a desire to be with the Lord. If I am not willing to meet with you, nothing will happen. So when you enter your room, when you retire, when you do, exactly as Jesus taught the disciples, when you want to pray, enter your room, silence your heart, turn your gaze within yourself, notice the way you are living, question yourself, be able to look at the pieces of your game that is life. Where do you go wrong? What are your weaknesses? What behaviors reinforce this weakness? What attitudes strengthen you to overcome this weakness? So is all of this an exercise in inner life? Sometimes a book, a spiritual reading, for example, is always good to have there by our bed, to be the last thought of the day. Sometimes we stay with the television on. We watch We watch so many heavy things, so many bad things. We go to sleep. It's like pollution. You know, a pollution of information or heavy scenes. Of course, our sleep will be influenced by all of this. It's so good when we have the habit of leaving it to God, the last moment of the day, and then the first one too. Isn't it that you, throughout the day, won't remember Him? Of course. I personally remember God all the time because my experience with Him goes through situations. I learned this from my mother, that God can be perceived, found everywhere in all people, because just as I keep the sacred, others do too. So this is the first way God speaks to me, through my intelligence, through my heart, through my common sense. And for that, I need to turn my eyes inward. And the other way is through the person who also has it, who loves me, who wants the best for me, and who sometimes sees it better. The panorama of my story, because they are from the outside. They don't have the same impediments that I sometimes have. Yes, because when I deal with my problems, I have some impediments. Emotional, affective, psychic, that the other doesn't have, so sometimes they have a better perception of what I'm experiencing. But there is also a danger there of letting yourself be influenced by the other, and you do what the other wants. Don't worry. Every time it is true that it comes to us through the other, it falls into our hearts. It's stamped with confirmation. Then you feel peace. Every time you realize that what the other said broke down a wall inside you and you suddenly understood it, it's the confirmation that God is giving you, that that is the right path. If what the other said wasn't confirmed within you by the action of the Spirit, sooner or later, it goes away. Now, when there is confirmation, when God actually passes through the other, because He wasn't able to speak directly to you because of your impediments, the confirmation comes to us, just like when we make a purchase, with the credit card and the blessed cell phone right away, right? Oh, the thing here. Quick deal. It makes us desperate. It's not possible. The young lady just went through there, and so much. It's been beeping on your cell phone so many times, saying the purchase has been approved. To charge us, there's such a rush that it's impossible. In the spiritual life, the exact same thing happens when you, because of your difficulties, your impediments, were unable to hear what the Lord needed to tell you. He will speak to you through someone else, but you will realize that what the other person is saying is true. Then there is confirmation, just like when a cell phone beeps with a credit card, with a purchase made without clothes. Is that so? Thank you, sir. Thank you for alerting me through Him. I have some people who do this to me. I'm very attentive whenever I'm going through a difficult time. I usually look for these people. I share. And sometimes you might think, he's a cold priest, right? Are they friends? Friends who have a different access to me. People who have a perception. And sometimes I don't even have much contact with. That's funny, right? They're not people I'm very close to. But they are people who have access to my truth and help clarify what, for me, is sometimes nebulous. Identify that sometimes this courage we need to express comes back to tell us we already have it. God has already given us everything we need to do to live. God has already given us everything that isn't all the ammunition we need to live well. But sometimes I forget that I have it. Then the other reminds me, with a word they say to me, with the advice they give me, with a warning they give me. Does. Especially when you realize that the other person is not interested. What is interesting about this too? Sometimes in our coexistence, because of excessive closeness, disordered, jealous love, the other person may want to say what they want you to do. But I say again, it does not confirm within our hearts. Yes, because the other person, in the same way, how can I also want to influence someone based on my interests? Yes, my interests are hurt by my sin. I may very well want to mobilize, manipulate, so that the other person does what I want, because I think it is fair, correct? If I am moved by my imbalance due to my jealousy, by my emotional disorder, God will not confirm this in the other person's heart. So I identify this. Sometimes that person comes, says something to me that even displeases me at first, but that sinks into my is it like that? And this courage that I have that I need to bring to the surface? Sometimes it's the other who reminds me. It's the other who reminds me that I can, that I should, because I have the conditions for it. Yes, because sometimes we get so hurt by life that we forget this power of God that is in us, who unintentionally is it mobilize, manipulate, so that the other does what I want, because I think it's fair, correct? If I'm moved by my own, imbalanced by my jealousy, by my emotional disorder, God won't confirm this in the other's heart. So I identify this. Sometimes that person comes, tells me something that even displeases me at first, but that sinks into my heart, and God will confirm it. Is that so? And this courage that I have that I need to bring to the surface? Sometimes it's the other who reminds me. It's the other who reminds me that I can, that I should, that I have a condition for this. Yes, because sometimes we get so hurt by life that we forget what we can do, this power of God that is within us. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we have years and years and years of walking within the church, within a spiritual life, and we still don't feel strengthened for life's challenges. We forget the power that is within us. I always say this. Looking at my personal experience, I'm also talking about something that I don't live. No, I need to recruit convictions daily that strengthen me, that give me the right to be who I am, to fight for what I fight for. But sometimes I forget, and it seems everything seems to be crumbling around me until the time comes that I need to turn my eyes inward, recognize, go back to walking the inner paths that I've forgotten how to walk. Yes, because with this life, it's full of demands. If there's one thing that falls into oblivion, it's me, the paths within. We become very scattered, very solicited, constantly ask for this, for that, and this excessive rushing around, excessive work, excessive activity. Doesn't it facilitate spiritual life? So I need to remember the courage I have. But to remember this courage, I need to be alone with you. Maybe you are identifying with what I am saying. Maybe today you are also thinking about what I started to tell you, about what you need to recruit within yourself so that you can handle your difficulties, your struggles, which are no different from others. You see, if you talk around, you will see that we are suffering for the same reasons. But why does that person get better results? Because maybe she is more aware to the power she has, the strength that you left in her, but you left the same thing in you. Is God fair? He can even give different gifts, right? But when it comes to spiritual virtues, for all of us, we all receive the gifts necessary to live well. Only sometimes we don't execute, we don't practice. Who said you don't have patience? Yes, it does. Patience is within you, but it could be that you were raised in a way that meant you didn't learn how to cultivate it, right? How many things have we failed to learn, failed to practice, because we weren't encouraged? Yes, it's part of our upbringing, our parents' negligence. Even if they didn't want to, they made mistakes. I always say this. To understand today's adult, you need to look back at the child. Sometimes the adult today is living by the rules of a child who wasn't healed, who wasn't encouraged, who wasn't loved enough. So God gave us the gifts we need to live well, but he also goes through what people do to us. He also depends. Isn't it interesting to say that, right? That God depends on our mothers, our fathers to educate us. Yes, the same thing happened with Jesus. Why did Jesus have to have a family? He was God. Why did he need to have a father and a mother? Because God didn't want to remove his son from the natural rule of life? Yes, that boy needed to be educated. Is he God? But it's so interesting to think that he took on characteristics of Saint Joseph, that he took on some aspects of Our Lady's personality. Yes, they influence him. Yes, Jesus also went through the experience of receiving limits. His parents set limits. Jesus learned a profession. Jesus learned his father's profession, which was a tradition of that time. The father taught his son the trade. Even though he was God, he went through the human process of receiving influences. He was there among the doctors of the law and arguing with them, certainly already questioning what he heard from the traditional religion of his time, what he knew about his father, about the way the Father loves us. And that is still valid today. A beautiful reformulation, a redefinition of God in history, of God in religions. Jesus, Jesus speech, sir, for all places, for all those who honestly seek. The Lord even has another name for him. Why? Because Jesus opens wide the merciful heart of the Father. He breaks all one. Pink, the right to despise others because of their weaknesses. A religious discourse that gave the right to religious people to feel better than those who were not. So, when Jesus opened the heart of the Father, we learn definitively that God is love, that God is an embrace, that God is justice, yes, but that before being justice, he is mercy, because he embraces. Only then will he direct the changes. So this Jesus was also raised by a man, by a woman. Yes, we are, and we receive the influences of our parents, which can harm or facilitate. We access courage at the moment we need it. So, every time I receive influences, something resonates within me. That's why we need to be so attentive to who influences us. Who are we listening to? What are we reading? What are we watching? What are we allowing to influence our way of being, feeling, and thinking? Before continuing, I also take this opportunity to invite you to join the Members Club here on the channel. There's a link here in the video description. After you finish watching, click here to learn more and come join us. I also want to welcome the new members, Shirley Costa, Renata Vicente, and Leonice Alves, who recently joined our club. Welcome, and we hope you're watching now. If you're not yet a member, come join us. I received a letter. Who wrote this letter to me? It's Anna Carolina Guillermi. A story that's both sad and beautiful. She wrote it like this: Father Fabio, my story, despite my young age, has a high dose of absurdity, as you talk about in your book. When suffering knocks on your door. This photo is of my family. Me, Carol, my son Lucas, who is now 9 years old, and my husband, Fabricio. Lucas has been my Tao and visually impaired. What if that wasn't already a limitation enough? He also had a serious malformation in his digestive system and required surgery at birth. He spent a month in the ICU, but thank God, and as my grandmother would say, he pulled through. He always had delicate health, which required a lot of care, until January 2015, when he underwent a final surgery and, thank God, became completely healthy. Lucas is our miracle. He survived against all odds since pregnancy, fighting to live, and I thank God every day that God entrusted me with this mission of being the mother of an angel who transformed me so much. He taught me patience to bide his time, and each small achievement of his is celebrated with great happiness. After long years of worrying about our son's health, my husband and I finally believed we could have a normal, peaceful life. But in June 2015, it was Fabricio who fell ill. He had pancreatic cancer, with metastases to several organs. Unfortunately, due to a lack of symptoms, the disease was discovered in its terminal stage. Well, yes, the absurdities of life once again knocked on our door and forced their way in. How can we understand that my husband of 34 years, this handsome young man, you can see in this photo, was suddenly dying? What is medicine? Or rather, that medicine only had palliative treatment for his illness. And you know, I believe in miracles. Leukemia is one of them. And so many times we ran the risk of losing him. And he surprised us, even the doctors. But in Fabricio's case, it was different. He suffered from a terminal progressive illness. And so, forgive me if I'm wrong, but who said that a miracle is to cure the illness? Who said that healing can't be of the soul? Why choose to listen to doctors and prepare for the worst? Does it mean not having faith? The priest? What kind of faith is this that thinks God only loves those who receive a supernatural cure? And those who died of cancer are not loved by God? How many times did I hear you? Pray, my daughter. Pray with faith that God will heal your husband. One thing I guarantee, it wasn't for lack of prayer. No. Did I pray properly? Do you know that you argue that increasing my prayers did me a lot of good? They calmed my soul, which was also suffering from terminal cancer. At that moment, you made all the difference in our lives because we were already following you, and it was on a Wednesday. As soon as Fabricio found out about the illness, he told me. It was at Cansao Nova that Father Fabio made the program for me today. And it was the first time I saw him cry copiously, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. Because in fact, Your words were for him perfectly. They were at the exact moment he was living, and God spoke directly to him through you. And the cry was like saying, "Dad, can you tell me I'm listening?" And he knew how much God loves him. He is not alone. God takes care of him when he says, "Courage." Look what a coincidence. I hadn't read that part of the letter. I didn't know that was the muse. And how courageous he was. Father, he fought until his last breath. This music of yours cured him of many side effects of what a coincidence. I hadn't read that part of the letter. I didn't know this was the muse. And how courageous he was. Father, fighting until his last breath. This music of yours cured him of many side effects of chemotherapy. I brought him back to strength in the moments when he thought about giving up. I read many phrases from your books for him during the most difficult days, during the endless chemotherapy sessions, during the long hours of waiting in the doctor's offices, during the exams and invasive, painful procedures. The precious medicine was faith, which was often reinforced by your sermons, which we watched on YouTube, and every Holy Wednesday of spiritual direction. It was the immunotherapy he needed to sometimes restore some resistance to his body, so punished by Kimmy's illness. Fabrizio made videos on Instagram and YouTube. This story, told in his characteristic irreverent way, helped many people who are also cold. Father, don't you know this? But we became great friends. Because you were often in our house. You helped Fabrizio die. From this life in peace. With the certainty that he was loved by his friends, family, and, above all, by God. And he also helped me endure the anguish. All the pain. Would I live without him? Of course. Even after 2 years, I still have days of deep sadness, a lot of longing, not to mention the trauma of going through all this. But I managed, with your help, to find the strength to care for Lucas, who needs me so much. Father Fabio, you are blessed with wonderful pain, and I know that to live this life you have to give up many things. It must not be easy. Then, even if you are enlightened, you are in the human condition, which is limited and subject to all the storms characteristic of a human being. But know that there is someone here who prays for your life every day. We are here to be constantly taken out of our comfort zone and to rebuild ourselves, just as I am doing now without Fabrizio. This gift of yours resurrects those who receive your message. And it was through her that my husband was cured. He took everything from the disease, right? Except the essence. Fabrizio used to say that even cancer has its good side, and we were blessed with many signs from heaven, the subtle, most wonderful signs from the heavens, which made us remain in the certainty that we are always protected. And these little miracles are, yes, supernatural, like one day when there was no medicine left to ease my husband's pain. So I started to pray mentally, Mary goes in front, and he asked me if I had lit any candles. Then I smelled the candle that the girl lights every night for Our Lady. But I didn't light any candles. I just prayed in silence and with stifled tears so that he wouldn't notice. Then the pain passed. He calmed down and slept. This priest is the supernatural that I believe in. As I said, much sadness experienced in just 34 years, but much learning and much love too. I apologize if the cover letter was long. It's just that my story cannot be summed up in a few words. I'm still trying to deal with the absurdities that sometimes insist on taking away my peace. They say existence weighs tons. Fear takes over and the ground is lost. Everything about species. And I conclude that this life is not easy to live, but it becomes less difficult when God gives us his hand and walks with us. And many times, that hand is your voice. Thank you for the words that soothe the pain, and for the songs that caress the soul. I thank God for your life, and you for being a part of it, a tool to touch the lives of those around you. My eternal and infinite gratitude. Anna Carolina, Gil Yermy. Let's see their picture here. Here, can you show it? No? This family? Fabrizio, who is gone. Lucas, special son in her. And here's a picture of Anna, with Lucas. Oh, Anna, thank you so much. Interesting people that I hadn't read. I had read this, just the beginning of the letter. I brought it because Tekka, until the person who takes care of me, she said, so read this letter. It was because I went because it's a very beautiful story. I said, it will help other people, I'm sure. So I brought it. And coincidentally, I don't know, I swear to you by everything that is most sacred, that I didn't know it was a song that was part of this couple's story. Anna, I thank you so much because I believe so much in everything you said, my daughter. I believe so much that the healing that we need to receive sometimes is not the one we think can happen. I remember Father Leo, one of the last moments of his life that I had the opportunity to, I heard him here at Hosanna, Brazil. He told me, these people are all praying to be healed, right? Are you? But I've already been. I've already been healed of what I needed. I was healed to die. Now I'm going to die well. The disease cured me of so many things. Fabio, what did you say? I believe it's the exact same experience you had. And how happy I am, Anna, how I feel with my mission accomplished. To know that, but I'm gone. I've already been healed of what I needed. I was healed to die. Now I'm going to die well. The illness cured me of so many things. Fabio said, I believe it's the exact same experience as yours. And how I rejoice, Anna, how I feel the mission accomplished. To know that your faith has reached this maturity and that somehow we participated in this. You have no idea how much it comforts and strengthens me, including relieving my fatigue during my exams. As you yourself said, to know that I was able to help Fabricio, to abolish wanted, not cancer, but everything that could be an impediment to him, to live with dignity what life gave him. I feel extremely honored to have participated in such a beautiful story, and to know that my ministry, my life, kind of more limited as I am, God has spoken to you through me. There are so many people who also need to understand that the maturity of faith precisely places us in the state of waiting, which entails freedom, of allowing God to do what needs to be done. I think it is such a delicate subject. Get out. Why does God heal? That God doesn't heal there. I prefer not to stay, even talking about it. I prefer to understand it like this. How are you understanding it? As a mystery that we welcome. The mystery that we welcome. Because God strengthens us to live what we need to live. God sustains us, yes, when we open ourselves to his protection. Because Jesus also died like this. The scene from that movie that I always talk about, right? Which is even in this book, When Suffering Knocks on Your Door, that you mention, and the scene from a movie where the father comes in. I think in the hospital. His son had just died. He had been murdered, and his daughter had been murdered. The priest was in that corridor because he was going to be there. The killer who was going to die in the electric chair. And the girl's father, when he passes by, looks at the priest, yells at him, "Where was your God when my daughter was murdered?" And the priest, very calmly, in the same place when they killed his son. You know that, right? Yes, sometimes there are things that escape our understanding. We don't know what to say. And then, we give in to the mystery. Life in suffocation. When we surrender to the mystery, when we dismiss the questions, when we just welcome the pain. Because you had to do that too, right? Didn't you run away from the pain in the same way you still don't run away from it? You yourself said there are days when it's heavy. It's just time, because time unravels this ball of yarn, you know? And soon the threads will be loose, and you'll be able to embroider with them. But if we don't live, the acceptance of what is before us, if we reject, if we keep asking, do we delay the healing? That the healing isn't when we accept. Or rather, the healing isn't. When we find the answer, the healing is. It happens when we learn to live with the question. Healing. It doesn't happen when we find the answer. Does healing happen? When we learn to live with the loss. That's what I wish. May Anna's testimony serve us all. Yes, because we may not have a situation similar to hers. We may not have it. We may not be losing anyone at this moment. But there are so many other necessary healings. Or you may be facing, yes, physical loss. Someone you love is leaving, or you may have stepped on, burying a child. I need to bury a brother, a mother, a father, a husband, a wife, a friend. Don't waste your time with questions that don't answer. Embrace them. Connie is suffering and allow him to teach me. Embrace them. And know that there is courage within you. Here it's just a matter of recruiting. And she is the one who helps us win. Thank you, Anna. Luck is as a kiss for me. I hope, when an eternity I have, if I have this right, give a hug to Fabrizio. And thank him for belatedly, 2 years after his death, he spoke so deeply to my heart. Through you, may Almighty God pour out his blessing upon us and teach us. May he reveal to us daily the rules of life so that by recruiting all that he gave us, we can learn to live, to savor an instant, to enjoy all that is around us, calling for us, he who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.